Chapter 6 Protect the Pride. First day of the third month, 696th year. 6 months of routine life took place, in which the brothers had their 14th birthday. They celebrated as best they could, but it was painful without Brannon. A month after their birthday, Dragato was in the north of the nation, spending time with his friends and enjoying various games. It was a beautiful day, and the warm sun reflected off the reservoir as Dragato launched a stone into the air. There was a long pause as all 8 friends watched the stone fly, hands shading their eyes. "Looks like you win again," Rion called, as the stone plopped with a splash just beyond anyone's throw. Dragato felt a hard slap on his back. "Incredible," muttered Korach, shaking his head in disbelief. "Don't you get tired of winning every time?" Dragato laughed. "It comes with a price. You know I've worked hard to be this strong." Yes, you have," Korach agreed, and hesitated before continuing. "We've all worked hard. You just seem to have more strength than the rest of us." Dragato smiled, enjoying the recognition. "I probably put in more effort," he said with a shrug, trying to brush it off, but added, "One day it will serve a bigger purpose than winning our games. You and your desire to make the creator happy, I'll never understand it." "Yet we're still friends," Dragato said with a grin. The other youths continued their games, and the procession of plops and sun-kissed splashes decorated the backdrop as Dragato and Korach kept talking. "Of course we're still friends," Korach said. "Who else is going to challenge you when you go on one of your missions to help dig in the ore pits, or help the farmers build barns, or lifting heavy hay bales for them? And yet you still come along and help." "You know I didn't want to at first, but I was going to be left behind if I didn't come along. I see now it could be fun and productive, but don't go thinking it's to help the creator. If anything, it's to help you." "Help me?" Dragato asked, giving him a look of jovial disbelief. "You're my friend. But it's more than that. You know we all follow your lead, Dragato. You want to do something, and we follow. Just don't go leading us into anything stupid, okay?" Dragato hadn't been sure what to say. The words made him think of Brannon and how he was slowly becoming the leader his father wanted him to be. "That's why I have you," Dragato replied after a brief pause, "to keep me from doing anything stupid." They both laughed. A sudden call broke the laughter, and they turned around. "Lions! At the farms!" a young boy called between deep gasps. "Do you know anyone who can help?" he pleaded, brushing his fringe of raggedy brown hair away from his eyes. There was a pause, and Dragato looked at Korach, then at his friends, and then back at Korach. "Oh no," Korach said. "I know that look. This must be my time to stop you from doing something stupid." "Oh, come on, we can do this. We've taken on bears when hunting as a group. It'll be a great challenge." "A challenge?" Korach choked. "That's an understatement. It's lions, Dragato. You don't even know how many." "How many?" Dragato asked, turning quickly to the boy. 3, I think. That's what I was told." "We can take 3. They could kill any one of us," Korach protested. "This is too risky. We can get more people." "There won't be enough time," Dragato replied. "They might kill the livestock or the workers who can't defend themselves the way we can." "We can do this," he said, raising his voice. "Of course there's a risk, but we'll be okay. We have to help. And think of the stories we'll have to tell when we've killed the lions." Korach sighed. Okay, I'll follow your lead," he said, confidence building from Dragato's assurance. Dragato nodded his head and turned to the 6 young men. "Who's up for a real test of strength?" The others had been watching the discussion unfold. Rion, Tero, Linur, and Turnon looked at each other, smiled and nodded their heads. Benway and Yelhen didn't look so convinced and whispered to each other unhappily. "We'll be heroes," Dragato said, perceiving their doubts. "We can't do it without you." The others made similar pleas to Yelhen and Benway succumbed to the pressure. Dragato smiled and turned back to the boy. "Lead the way." They all set off at a light jog. Once they reached the farms, they saw people in the farmhouses pointing across the livestock fields towards the cornfields. There, slowly creeping towards the animals, were 3 sand-colored dots. group of boys slowed to a quick walk, removed their restricting shirts, and tightened their hunting belts. Drugati scanned the scene and spoke quickly. "They're lionesses. I want 3 of you on my left and 4 on my right. They think they're the hunters, but today we are." He reached for his 2 hunting knives, pulled them from the holsters, and walked towards the predators. His friends gathered either side of him, stretching, jumping, and loosening their muscles in preparation. About 100 meters away from the lionesses, Drugati spoke. "Remember to use strength, power, and control." The lionesses were completely visible now, a savage, starved look in their dark black eyes. They moved cautiously, crouching low as they stalked, ready to pounce or charge. Each muscle of their sleek bodies moved under the sand-colored fur, while sharp teeth gnashed in carnal defiance. "I'll take the one in the middle," Drugati said, then pointed with his knives. "Those on my left, kill that one. Those on my right, kill the other. They'll be fast, so don't take pointless risks." Korik shot a quick, questioning look Drugati's way. Drugati gave a half smile and a confident nod. "Focus," he whispered. Korik snapped his head back towards his target and gripped his knife tight. The heat of the sun beat down as 2 lionesses slowly flanked them, coming closer and closer. There was a cautious intelligence in their movements. The strange 8 figures were not their usual prey. Drugati could see flecks of brown and red in their fur. Mud and blood. "Now!" Drugati suddenly roared. The 2 groups separated, shooting out and around like 2 fists punching simultaneously. Drugati ran forward. The central lioness matched his pace, with primal intensity in both their speed. Mid-run, Drugati stopped and put his arms behind him. He quickly swung them forward, raising as if to jump. The lioness took the bait. It pounced high, her huge paws ready, claws extended, reaching for him. Drugati let his legs go from underneath him. He skidded low, gripped the knife tight, and absorbed the fall with his arms. The lioness went straight over him. As fast as he could, Drugati turned on to his front, pushed himself up with his knuckles, and sprinted forwards. Just as the lion turned, Drugati managed to throw himself onto its back. He thrust his knives into the neck, one on either side, and with controlled movements sliced. Blood splattered everywhere, cutting the lioness's growl short. He collapsed to the floor, clearly dead. Drugati fell and rolled along the floor, dust and dirt clinging to his sweat-soaked skin. He got up quickly, adrenaline shooting through him. He had no time to celebrate. His head snapped to look at one group. They were stabbing their lioness over and over until it stopped moving. A pang of guilt hit Drugati in the chest. He could only see 3 of his friends standing. He scanned for Korik and sighed when he saw him at the side of the group. Yelhan, however, lay in front of the dead lioness. There was a savage bite on his neck and deep claw marks all over his arms and back. Drugati hung his head for a split second. He knew the risks, he thought, as he tried to block out the shock and the guilt. It was a half-truth, and he felt shame for the callous remark. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted by shouts of the other group. He quickly turned towards them, blocking out the pain. They were struggling. Benway was sprawled on the ground, unmoving. Another friend was dead, and the pain and guilt became cold agony. It froze him momentarily. All he could do was watch in horror as the other 2 withdrew slowly, the lioness creeping towards them. The desire to save them shattered his numbness. "Hey!" Drugati shouted at Korik and his group. "There's no time to stop. Our friends need us." He pointed in the direction of the other group. The call brought their attention to the scene. They backed away from their dead friend and charged, expelling cries of rage. As one, they surrounded their enemy like feasting carrion. The wild lioness lashed out, but they dodged and jumped to avoid the strikes. It wasn't long before the attacks became frantic and clumsy. Those behind her sensed the fatigue and swarmed to take revenge. They stabbed and stabbed until the back legs gave way. The front then advanced and came together to silence her growls. Crimson strokes filled Drugati's vision long after the lioness had been stilled. They finally stopped, and many of the youths dropped their knives. They had lost control, and the realization hit them hard. However, before the mixture of emotions could take hold, a roar echoed from the crop field. They looked at each other in fear, but Drugati felt a flame of excitement. The leader of the pride was here. The corn suddenly parted, as if bowing, and the lion emerged with grace and majesty. A full mane decorated its mantle like a crown of power. What do we do? Riom said, and stumbled as he picked up his knife. We kill it, Dragato said flatly. We still have to protect the livestock and farmers. Get revenge, he added in a whisper. His guilt had turned to anger, and it focused on the lion. Stay focused, he said loudly, looking around at the 5 boys. If we work together, none of us will get hurt. I hope, he thought. The lion was advancing steadily, its head held high. Dragato felt a sense of awe, but it soon faded as he remembered Benway and Yellen. We'll work in twos, Dragato continued. Korik and I will take the front. We will? Korik exclaimed. We'll be fine, Dragato replied. Rion, Tero, you take the left. Linur, turn on. You take the right. Attack from the sides, and we'll provide the distraction. If you can get underneath and stab at its chest, then do it, but get out quickly. He wiped his mouth with his forearm and focused on the approaching beast. It was 20 meters away when it stopped, standing noble and defiant as a mountain. Go, Dragato said to the 2 pairs. They began sidestepping, barely daring to blink. The lion moved its head slowly side to side as it kept track of the attackers. Let's do this, Dragato said, and began to walk forward, each step confident and sure. Korik took a deep breath and followed, staying level with Dragato. When only 10 meters away, Dragato gave a slight nod of respect. The lion responded with a sharp intake of breath, and then expelled a long roar that made the assailants pause for a moment. Dragato was least phased and advanced, causing Korik to quicken his step to keep up. Suddenly the battle commenced. Now, Dragato cried, and the pairs to the left and right sprinted at the lion. The lion charged at the same time. Those on the flanks were too slow, and the beast leapt for Dragato and Korik. They divided to opposite sides and landed heavily, both rolling and scrambling to their feet. The lion whipped around to its right and pounced as Korik rose. No! Dragato screamed as the lion's full body wrapped around Korik. The sound of crunching and snapping became a staccato in the air. Once again, shock and horror froze Dragato, but then rage and bloodlust took over. He didn't even notice his 4 friends turning to Korik's aid as he sprinted. He took both knives in his hands, blades facing down, and jumped. As he landed on the lion, he plunged the weapons deep into its back. There was a deep, angry growl. The lion twisted and whipped around, releasing Korik, and Dragato was thrown off to the side. Dragato landed awkwardly. His left arm hit the floor first, followed by the full weight of his body. There was a snap and pop, and even the adrenaline pumping through his veins couldn't mask all the pain. He spun several times and growled. He used his good arm to push himself to his feet, and suddenly felt the arms and hands of his friends as they helped him. The lion spun to face them. Blood dripped down its sides and from its mouth. Give me your knife, Dragato shouted. Tero handed him a dripping knife, too shocked to argue. Dragato then ran forward, his friends caught off guard by his lack of reservation. He continued forward, his broken and dislocated arm hanging loose, his other hand gripping the knife tightly. The lion pounced before the others could help. Dragato saw the attack, stopped dead, and deliberately fell backwards. The jaws of the lion opened, and Dragato looked into the black tunnel of death. He plunged the knife deep into the tunnel, the glinting point aimed at the roof. Dragato withdrew his hand quickly as the tunnel closed menacingly. The action pushed the blade deep through the vulnerable flesh and straight into the lion's brain. With a killing blow, it collapsed into a heap on Dragato's legs and chest. Blood poured from its teeth, and the point of the knife could be seen like a small silver horn. Everything went still as Dragato stared at the lion's face, which almost touched his own. The smell of rotting flesh and blood enveloped him, sour yet sweet. Korik's blood. He breathed heavily, pain lacing his senses, but its full impact dulled by shock. His friends tugged and pulled him out from under the lion. They helped him to his feet, but he could barely stand. Everything became a blur. Are you alright? Linur and Turnon asked. Dragato didn't respond. He still couldn't focus properly. Your arm looks a mess, Rion said with a gasp. The mention of his arm jolted Dragato's senses forward, quashing the shock, and an eruption of agony fired along his arm and shoulder. He went to cradle it, then stopped, moaning loudly of agony. Are you alright? Linur asked again as the boy stood around Dragato. He was more aware now, and the memory of Korik's death played in his mind. He turned to look at his friend. Korik, he uttered pleadingly, as the guilt and pain swelled inside him, hoping it wasn't true. No, he moaned bitterly as he saw the torn figure of his lifeless friend. He staggered forward, and the others watched, feeling similar pain, but void of the guilt that continued to grow in Dragatu. "No!" he suddenly bellowed, falling to his knees at Korik's side. He stared for a few moments, then his head fell. Uncontrollable tears stained the ground pink, tinged with the beast's blood that had splattered his face. "You need to get your arm looked at," Lenore said gently, after a few moments, standing behind Dragatu. Dragatu didn't say anything. He continued to mourn and tried to understand his part in it all. After a few more moments, Lenore signaled to the others and murmured that they should get Dragatu to the nearest farmhouse and see to their own wounds. He took Dragatu under his good arm and lifted him to his feet. He was reluctant at first. "It's my fault. He said not to go. All my fault," he muttered. He took one last look at Korik as his friends gently guided him away. Together they staggered to the nearest farmhouse. People from the farmhouse met them halfway and took over, guiding Dragatu's disorientated and broken body into the house. The farmer looked at the arm while his wife poured them water. "It's a nasty one. Seen a couple like it in my time," he uttered. "Going to have to put it back in place quickly. Set it nice and straight. It's going to hurt a lot." Dragatu had gained some composure. "Good," he mumbled through clenched teeth. The farmer mistook it for permission to go ahead and took his arm. On the count of 3. 1, 2. "Ah!" Dragatu roared. His friends held him in the chair as he writhed with pain. After his scream of agony, he hung his head and sobbed for a couple of times, sniffed to catch his breath, and focused on the simple act of breathing. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. He raised his head and nodded that his friends could let go. "Not too much I can do about the break," the farmer said. "I'll put it in a sling, but it will need a proper healer to look at it and strap it up. It's a small price to pay for what you did here. I can't thank you and your friends enough. I'll be forever in your debt," he said humbly, taking some material and making a sling for Dragatu. "Just make sure my friends are okay," Dragatu said, looking at the 4 boys who stood around him. "Of course," the farmer replied. Once Dragatu's arm was in the sling, the farmer signaled to his workers, who stood in the background, to take the youth and make sure they had no critical wounds, and to get them food and drink. As everyone rushed around, Dragatu slowly went to stand. No, you need to rest," the farmer said, placing a hand on his good shoulder. "Just sit there. Everything will be taken care of. We're making stretchers for your friends who are, well..." There was an awkward pause. The farmer tried to be sensitive. We brushed past the painful word. "And we'll take them to their parents when you feel okay to tell us where they live." "I'll tell you now," Dragatu said, ignoring the farmer, and standing. He gave the location of Yellen, Benway, and Korik's family. The farmer wrote them down and went outside to give it to the other workers. Dragatu slowly made his way out of the farmhouse. His body ached and his arm throbbed. There was nothing compared to the fire inside. The farmer saw him and went to protest again, but as their gazes connected, he saw the direction Dragatu was walking and let him be. Dragatu walked around the bodies of Yellen and Benway, who had been carried close to the farmhouse and covered in a homespun sheet. As he did, the pain in his chest weighed heavy. All he could do was repeat a pleading apology in his mind. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." His face tensed under the stress. Once beyond them, he came to Korik, who had been placed on a stretcher and was about to be moved. "Give me a moment," Dragatu managed to say, as his lip quivered and eyes filled up once more. The worker stepped back several meters and turned around awkwardly, not knowing what to do. "I'm so sorry," Dragatu said, and wept as he fell to his knees, putting his good hand over his face to cover up the shame, fear, and loss. "We were helping the people, and I thought we'd be okay," he sniffed. "I didn't really think any of us would die. We were helping people. How can doing good lead to so much pain and death? I should have listened to you. You'd still be alive," he sobbed. "But then, more people could have died. We've prevented that, right? How do I know I made the right choice?" he said angrily, and the thought entered his mind. Those that sacrifice for others receive the greater reward. It was something he had read in the Book of Law recently. A simple phrase gave him a slight ray of hope. "I know you didn't believe, but your sacrifice can't have been in vain. You're a hero. I'll tell people that, Korik. I will write it in my journal, so you're never forgotten. I'm just so sorry." he muttered under his breath. There was a long pause. I'll miss you, he said finally, and sobbed bitterly. A minute passed, and after a few deep breaths he managed to stand, letting the tears run down his face. He turned and coughed. The workers took the signal, lifted Korik with respect and tenderness, and followed Dragatu back to the farmhouse. 3 dead young men lay on the stretchers as a long procession of people followed them back to their homes and families. News of what had occurred spread fast, and people couldn't believe what these youths had done to the farmers and workers. Dragatu noticed the pointing and whispering as he walked. Many of the people praised his killing of the Pride leader. A small part of him enjoyed the recognition, but was smothered by the loss of his friends. All he could see in his mind's eye was their deaths, and he tried to tell people that his friends were the true heroes. Finally, it got too much, his guilt still lingering heavily on his conscience. He slipped down a side street to be alone. Keeping to the quiet and dark streets, he made his way home. As he entered his house, silence welcomed him, and he was glad. He knew his mother and brothers would be trying to find him in the procession, but he wanted to be alone. Seeking comfort, he took his journal in his good arm and went to the library to record what had happened. He needed to make sure Korik's death and heroism was recorded. At times his emotions were too much. He often had to stop to weep bitterly, and at other times he continued to battle whether he had made the right choice. Finally, everything was written and recorded. After sitting in the library for some time, the pain of his arm gnawed and grew until it could no longer be ignored. It needed a healer's attention, and he put his journal back in his room. As he walked down the stairs, the front door flung open. We've been looking for you, Dragatu said, a worried look turning to anger and then relief. She walked to him briskly, went to hug him, stopped when she saw his arm, and kissed him on the forehead instead. I heard what happened, she said with concerned tones, but then anger rose in her voice. What were you thinking? It's what father would have done. I wanted to help the people. Ilana swallowed hard to hold back her sudden tender emotions. Are you okay? She said finally. My arm is broken and needs to be set. Ilana took a deep breath. Okay, let's go. The healer strapped up Dragatu's arm and prescribed rest for 2 months. Dragatu knew that would be impossible. Once they returned home, he was exhausted, and after rejecting requests from Finon to tell the story, he went to bed. Second day of the 3rd month, 696th year. The burials took place at family plots that were located at points throughout the nation. Feasts were held in honor of the dead, and Dragatu managed to face the families of Yellen, Benway, and Korik. Questions were asked that evening, and Dragatu's first reaction was always to turn the focus on his friend's sacrifice and heroism, and that people were saved because they stopped the lions. This gave comfort to the families. Days and weeks went by, and Dragatu struggled to stay patient with his healing arm. What made it harder was the new thirst that had risen within him, a thirst for greater challenges. In his hours of resting alone or being out with his friends, but unable to join with the games, he had a lot of time to think and speculate. If I can kill a pack leader, what else am I capable of? No sport here will be satisfying now, he realized as he sat in the library one day. But the hills have tougher game. Nerves of excitement grew at the thought. When my arm is better, I'll go there and hunt. I'll see the water source again. He was quickly caught up in his youthful confidence. Maybe I'll see the wolf and kill it, he whispered.